The coffee cup trembled in Maya's hands as she stared at the eviction notice on her phone, and in that moment of despair, she didn't notice the well-dressed man hovering near her table, searching desperately for a place to sit with his crying daughter. She had 48 hours to come up with 3 months' rent or lose everything, and the small cafe table she occupied felt like the last solid ground beneath her feet. Her eyes were red from nights without sleep, her teaching assistant salary stretched so thin it had snapped weeks ago, and the medical bills from her mother's cancer treatment had buried her in a debt so deep she could barely see daylight anymore. But when she finally looked up and saw the exhausted father trying to console a sobbing little girl while juggling a tray of hot drinks in the packed cafe, something inside her shifted, and without thinking, without calculating what little she had left to give, she cleared her books and gestured to the empty seat across from her. The man's relief was palpable as he thanked her, his voice rough with gratitude, and as he settled his daughter into the chair, Maya noticed the expensive cut of his suit, the designer watch, the kind of polish that spoke of a life entirely different from her own. The little girl, maybe 6 years old, had tears streaming down her flushed cheeks, and Maya found herself instinctively reaching into her bag for the packet of tissues she always carried. She slid them across the table without a word, offering a gentle smile to the child whose world seemed to be crumbling in that moment. The father looked at Maya with something between surprise and deep appreciation, and as he helped his daughter wipe her tears, he introduced himself as David and explained that they had just come from the hospital where his mother had been admitted, and his daughter Sophie was scared and confused and needed a moment to feel safe. Maya's heart clenched at the word hospital, and suddenly the stranger across from her didn't seem like a stranger at all. She began to talk softly to Sophie, telling her about the time she was little and scared in a hospital, how her own mother had been sick, how sometimes the beeping machines and sterile smells felt overwhelming, but how the people there were heroes in disguise, fighting to make people better. David watched this unfold with an expression Maya couldn't quite read, a mixture of wonder and something that looked like recognition, as if he was seeing something precious he thought had vanished from the world. Sophie began to calm down, her small hand reaching out to touch the charm bracelet on Maya's wrist, asking questions about each tiny silver piece, and Maya explained each one with patience and warmth, her own troubles temporarily forgotten in the simple act of comforting a frightened child. If you believe in the power of small acts of kindness, in second chances, and in the unexpected ways our lives can intersect and change forever, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment below sharing a time when a stranger's kindness made a difference in your life, share this story with someone who needs to hear it, and subscribe to our channel for more heartwarming stories that remind us of the good that still exists in this world. As the minutes passed, David began to open up in ways he later couldn't explain. Perhaps it was Maya's genuine warmth, or the way she had asked for nothing in return, or the fact that she treated Sophie not with pity but with real understanding. He told her about being a single father since his wife passed away 3 years ago, about building his software company from nothing while trying to be both mother and father to his daughter, about the crushing loneliness of success when you have no one to share it with, about his mother's sudden collapse that morning and how it reminded him that money and power meant nothing when the people you love were suffering. Maya listened with the kind of attention that felt like a gift, and she shared her own story in return, the words spilling out before she could stop them, about her mother's fight with cancer, the mounting bills, the eviction notice, the way she felt like she was drowning but kept swimming because giving up wasn't in her nature. David fell silent, and Maya immediately regretted her honesty, worried she had made this successful stranger uncomfortable with her problems, but when she looked up, his eyes were glistening with unshed tears. He told her that what she was doing, working 2 jobs while caring for a sick parent while pursuing her master's degree in education, was the kind of courage that actually mattered, that she reminded him of his late wife who had the same selfless strength, the same ability to give even when she had nothing left. Sophie had fallen asleep against her father's arm, exhausted from her emotional mourning, and the cafe buzzed around them while Maya and David sat in a bubble of shared understanding, 2 souls who had briefly glimpsed the battles the other was fighting beneath the surface of everyday life. When David finally had to leave to return to the hospital, he hesitated, and Maya saw him struggling with something internal, some decision he was trying to make. He pulled out a business card and wrote something on the back, sliding it across the table with a quiet request that she call the number if she ever needed anything at all. Maya accepted it politely but had no intention of using it, her pride still intact despite everything else that had crumbled. She had offered a seat at her table because it was the right thing to do, not because she wanted something in return, and she told David exactly that with a smile that was both sad and genuine. He nodded as if he understood, but there was something in his expression that suggested he saw more than she realized, that he recognized her situation was more desperate than she was willing to admit. 3 days later, Maya was packing her few belongings into cardboard boxes, her eviction now a reality, when her phone rang from an unknown number. The voice on the other end introduced herself as Jennifer from the Hartford Foundation, and Maya's first thought was that it was some kind of scam or wrong number. But Jennifer explained that the foundation provided emergency grants to healthcare workers and educators facing financial hardship due to family medical crises, and that Maya's situation had come to their attention through a mutual connection. Before Maya could process what was happening, Jennifer told her that the foundation wanted to cover her rent for the next year, pay off her mother's medical bills, and offer her a full scholarship to complete her master's degree. Maya actually laughed, a slightly hysterical sound, because things like this didn't happen to people like her, and she asked who had nominated her, what mutual connection could possibly know the details of her private struggle. Jennifer paused, then gently explained that the foundation's founder preferred to remain anonymous in most cases, but that he had personally expedited Maya's case and insisted they contact her immediately. Something clicked in Maya's mind, and she pulled out the business card David had given her, really looking at it for the first time. David Hartford, CEO and founder, Hartford Technologies and Hartford Foundation. She had been so focused on surviving that she hadn't even Googled the name, hadn't recognized that the kind stranger who sat at her table was one of the city's most prominent philanthropists, a man whose foundation had helped thousands but who apparently still took the time to see the individual struggling right in front of him. Maya called the number on the back of the card with shaking hands, and David answered on the second ring. She didn't know whether to thank him or be angry that he had interfered, her emotions a tangle of gratitude and embarrassment and overwhelming relief. But before she could speak, David's voice came through, warm and slightly anxious, asking if she was upset with him, explaining that he had founded the foundation in his wife's memory because she had always believed that the people who gave when they had nothing were the ones who deserved everything. He told Maya that watching her comfort Sophie, seeing her kindness despite her own pain, had reminded him why he did this work in the first place, that she hadn't just given up a seat at a crowded cafe but had given his daughter and him something far more valuable in a moment of need. The words that came out of Maya's mouth were barely coherent through her tears, but David seemed to understand, and he asked if she would consider having coffee again sometime, properly this time, perhaps with Sophie who hadn't stopped talking about the nice lady with the charm bracelet. Maya said yes through her sobs, and for the first time in months, they were tears of hope rather than despair. The foundation's help meant she could focus on her mother's recovery, complete her education, and actually build the life she had been fighting so hard to maintain, and it had all come from a simple choice to share her table with a stranger who needed it. 6 months later, Maya stood in front of her first classroom as a fully certified teacher, her mother healthy and in remission sitting in the back row with David and Sophie. The charm bracelet on her wrist had a new addition, a tiny silver café cup that David had given her as a reminder that the smallest acts of kindness can change the trajectory of entire lives. She had learned that generosity isn't measured by what you have but by what you're willing to give, and that sometimes the people we help end up being the ones who save us in return. If this story touched your heart and reminded you that kindness is never wasted, that our struggles are seen even when we think we're invisible, and that hope can come from the most unexpected places, please hit that like button, share this video with someone who needs encouragement today, and let us know in the comments how this story made you feel. Your engagement helps us continue sharing these powerful reminders of human goodness. Maya often thought back to that crowded cafe, to the moment when she could have kept her table to herself, protected her small space in a world that felt overwhelming, but instead chose to make room for someone else's pain. She never could have imagined that the well-dressed man with the crying daughter was a millionaire single father, or that her simple act of sharing would lead to a friendship that transformed both their lives. But that was the thing about kindness, she realized. You never know the full story of the person standing in front of you, never know if your small gesture is the lifeline they desperately needed, Never know if the stranger you help today might become the answer to prayers you haven't even spoken yet. Comment below. Kindness matters, if you believe we should always make room at our table for those in need. David and Sophie became part of Maya's chosen family, and Maya became the mother figure Sophie had been missing, their lives intertwined in ways that felt destined despite their chance meeting. Maya eventually joined the Hartford Foundation's board, using her experience to identify and help others struggling. Beneath the surface, paying forward the grace that had been extended to her. And every time she sat in a crowded cafe, she made sure to look up, to notice who was searching for a place to rest, and to always make room at her table, because she knew now that in the space between strangers and friends, between despair and hope, between struggle and salvation, there exists the simple, profound power of human kindness to change absolutely everything.